All right, here is a quick review on our equations of circles. For a basic circle that's centered at the origin, you remember that it must begin with, here's my lightsaber here, it must begin with x squared plus y squared if it's centered at the origin, and the radius squared is the number at the end. This comes from a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So for this example right here, if I have x squared plus y squared equals 36, I know that the center of the circle must be just at 0, 0, the origin. And if it's 36 at the end, I square root to get the radius. So the radius would be equal to the square root of 36. So the radius equals 6. And one way to remember that is the letter R looks a lot like a square root symbol, and you square root to get the radius. Okay, for circles that are a little more complicated, like these fellas here, for this one right here, remember that to find the center, it's not as easy as you think it is. I mean, you'd think it's just taking negative 5 and 7 and writing them there. Instead of that, you have to change the signs as you place them into the coordinates like that. So the center would be the point positive 5, negative 7, and then the radius here would be the square root of 64, which is 8. All right, so let's see if you know what you're doing. So on the next one, try to get ahead of me. What is the center of this circle, and what is the radius worth? All right, so for the center, negative 8, negative 3, and the radius does not come out to be a whole number. The radius is the square root of 31, someplace between 5 and 6. All right, let's take a look at a tough one. This one is not in a nice, easy form. I mean, it is an equation of a circle because the x is being squared and the y is being squared. But what would we want? We want it to be in this nice form with the parentheses set up like this, and our y and x living in there, and then our radius squared over here. So somehow we have to turn this into this. And the method we use is completing the square. And it's called completing the square, but I nickname it split and square. Just think it's easier to remember what the technique is all about if its name is exactly like what you do. So for a question like this, we're going to take the x's and put them next to each other like that, just like they are, and put the y's next to each other, and really spread out this equation and let it breathe a little bit, giving me some room to put down some adjustments to the equation to make it work out just right. And the lightsabers are actually a pretty good backdrop here, because that's exactly what we have to do, is we have to split these numbers in half and then square them. So 2 split in half is 1, and the technique is called split and square. So if you split 2, you get 1, and what's 1 squared is 1. So we're going to add 1 to both sides of the equation after we split and square. We're going to do the same thing over here with this negative 10. We're going to split it. Negative 10 split in half is negative 5. What's negative 5 squared? Split and square. Negative 5 is the split. Square it. Negative 5 squared is negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side. And as this one works out, the right-hand side turns into 81. And that's good news for us because it ended in a perfect square. For the remainder of this, now that we've set these up with that split and square method, we can then factor these pieces. And as it turns out, we end up getting the same piece twice in a row for the x's and also the same factor repeated twice in a row for the y's. If you set it up just right with the split and square, that will always happen. And then the good news is, once we get that far, is we can actually take those x plus 1 squareds and write them together as one package. X plus 1 times x plus 1. And the y minus 5 times y minus 5 means y minus 5 squared. What I was telling my students was you can actually just skip over this step right here and go directly from here to here. If you remember that the number that inside, or if you're paying attention, the number that's inside the parentheses here is just these numbers split in half. So 2 split in half is 1, negative 10 split in half is negative 5. So that's a shortcut that I'd like you to take if you see it. And then at the end we can claim what the center is. The center is negative 1, 5, and the radius is the square root of 81, which is 9.